Greetings! Welcome to the devlog for Alpha 4 of Update 112 of Hot Dogs, Horseshoes, and Hand Grenades. We're going to start off as always with a quick sound check. Make sure your speakers aren't up too high. Wonderful. So what have we got for you this week? Well, I have been working away on the gas and grenade systems in the game, running around and tuning up a number of things. Let us send those sleeping Sosigs into oblivion. Let's jump right in. But I do want to say, before I start showing you stuff, I want to make sure to hang around after the VR section because I've got some news. We're actually going to be doing a small H3 VR dev eating hot dogs and shooting guns meetup in Las Vegas next week, and I got some information on that. So if you're curious about that, hold on till after our in VR section. So, what have we got here? Well, I have done a number of things. I've continued to, I gathered a bunch of performance information from folks across a wide range of configurations and did some further tweaking to improve our smoke for smoke grenades, as well as finally got some other, some improvements to the Sosig grenades, which I'll show you in a sec. So the big thing that I want to show you here is I continue to tune the sort of dual physics layer behavior with the smoke that basically allows the smoke to, well, I'll show you visually what's going on, and I'll talk about a couple different properties. And it's best to actually show here by throwing it inside a little corner of a wall. So you'll notice that it grows a little bit slower. But we get a lot more sort of volume displacement with it. And the smoke basically intersects into the environment a little bit further than it was last week, which helps ensure that this cloud is actually obstructing Sosig's sight. And you'll notice that it's basically going through its evolution as a smoke cloud longer. One of the big complaints about smoke grenades is that they haven't really been worth carrying because they just go away far too fast. Whereas you can see there, that lasted long enough to actually obstruct an entire entrance point for a significant period of time in something like Take and Hold. Like, you could absolutely use one of these or two of these to lock down entrances and block everything to give you an opportunity to, you know, to like reload everything that you're carrying or something along that lines. So it's not just that it's coming in slower. Here, let's actually do this at an, oop, held too long. At an entrance point. Yeah, we're getting like fantastic coverage here. It's actually growing back into this room a bit. That is actually effective as a tool. I don't know why it took me so long to sort of like come back to this and really try to get this to behave better from a gameplay standpoint. But I much prefer this behavior. And along the lines, all of the stuff that I showed off last week in terms of the way that smoke can influence Sosigs has been migrated over. Some changes, if we take a look at, say, the Mark V gas grenade, which this is actually CN gas, as are, I think, like the exotic shotgun rounds and grenade rounds that use gas. Even though it's visually the same, these have a slightly different effect in that instead of just momentarily blinding a Sosig when they overlap, let's just say spawn an idle Sosig here so we can see this behavior. We're going to have to wait till it decays away to really see it. But I just want to demonstrate that essentially the actual effect it ends up having, you'll see it primarily as a blind icon, but it's basically getting stunned during this given process, which means that it's not receiving AI events. So if you're repositioning to a different angle, even shooting in other directions, a Sosig that's being affected by this while it's in the cloud is not registering any of those. So you can definitely use these if you're trying to be stealthy or tactical. But as the cloud dissipates, you're going to actually see that the sort of lingering effect of its impact on the Sosig's vision actually hangs around for, I think, about 10 seconds or so. It depends on There's some asynchronous calculation here going on that it isn't updating every single volume every frame. But yeah, as you can see, that had a good amount of overlap during a period where you can see the Sosig afterward, and it is still basically just blinded from having been in the gas. And then the last thing related to our grenades, if we go under tools and toys, there's a new category in here, Sosig grenades. Actually, I had Ben do these models ages ago and finally got them in. I have rebuilt our very, you know, pretty fugly looking original Sosig grenades. If for any of you have never gotten this explanation for me as to why there are these separate items for the Sosigs, Sosig guns and Sosig grenades, basically these are way simpler and cheaper from a physics standpoint than a standard gun or a standard grenade in H3, and they also contain within them a whole bunch of logic that allows an AI to operate them. So even though this is still technically a two-handed weapon in H3, it has recoil, it fires bullets, it has a single reciprocating piece. It takes like 10 or 15 of these to equal the same sort of overhead from a complexity standpoint as a regular gun in H3, and the same thing is true of the Sosig grenades, which is why they've always been like fairly simple, but I always felt that they looked a little too simple, a little too jank. So these are in here now. They actually have there's a couple changes here that improve some things. One, folks have complained that when, especially with a frag grenade, when a Sosig has gone to throw and use this at you, you haven't been able to hear that that was happening. So now, when the grenade is fused, the spoon actually pops out, making a sound. Let's throw that. It's an automatic process for the player, because as I said, this isn't a full, it's mimicking a full complexity grenade in H3, but it's actually a far simpler set of tricks to make sure that if there's 10 or 15 Sosigs running around with one of these on the belt, that it isn't an onerous thing. So those are all present. They're in the item spawner now, which means they're both spawnable and savable. We have the incense grenade. Actually, that one, wait a minute. Something looked wrong there. Did I misdrag a reference? I don't think the spoon actually turned off on this one. Yup, that one's broken. There's our devlog bug of the week. Let's make sure this one looks right. Yup, that one looks right. I'm basically flipping between two pieces of geometry here. Oh, that one's... Oh, gotcha. So it's both the incense and the smoke that are busted. Easy fix, though. But yeah, so those are now in, and remember, obviously, like, if a Sosig is just hanging around, if you're the sort of person who likes to play H3 more as a stealth action type thing, that trigger is active even if you're not holding the grenade, so you can totally just reach over here and go like that. The Sosig freaks out momentarily because the spoon sort of like flicks against its side, but a good time can be had, given if that is a explosive one. I also wanted to mention that I put in an option that was requested for a good amount of time. I coded this but didn't test it because I'm just that kind of person. So let's see if this screws up or not. But for break actions, the behavior where if you have two shells and you go to chamber and it just double chambers that, some folks don't like that, so theoretically this should work. There we go. So if you preferred to have the original single chambering behavior on break actions, it is now toggleable in the firearm and object options. I always try to accommodate. I know this is a game that is very much about the manual interactions, and so some folk don't like things being done automatically for them. Cool. Beyond that, there's I'll talk in a bunch about a bunch of other little like subtle changes and fixes and optimizations that I worked on. But let's jump out and talk about that H3 meetup. Yo! So, H3 meetup, what's going on here? So I'm going to be in Vegas next week for a conference that's going on, or rather at where the conference is, but not at the conference, and just doing meetings instead. There's plenty of other devs who are going to be in town as well. My good buddy VR dev Zach, maker of Vertigo 2, is also going to be there with me. And so we decided it'd be fun to do basically like a little VR dev meetup, get some hot dogs and shoot some guns kind of thing. And the way that came about is I was originally like, I've always wanted to just like do an H3 meetup kind of thing. So I was like looking through like Google Maps in Vegas for a hot dog restaurant. And I was just like looking at this one plaza and I was like, okay, there's that place there. Wait a minute, is that a firing range right next to the hot dog place? And it just sort of felt like the universe was speaking to me at that point, saying, do it. So yeah, so basically on Tuesday, February 13th, that's this coming Tuesday at noon, we're meeting up at Crunchy's Korean Hot Dogs of 4284 Spring Mountain Road in Vegas. And after we hang out and just like, chat, chill, eat some hot dogs on a stick. If you've never had a Korean hot dog, you got to do it. They're awesome. They're like the corn dog that has like evolved into its final form. But yeah, so we're going to do that. And then after about an hour, we're going to go into American Shooters, which is a firing range that also rents machine guns. And we're going to go shoot a bit there. So if you want to come along, eat first, and then go over there, more than welcome. Just know if you've never been to one of these, it's Vegas range. So it's going to be more expensive than a lot of other ranges. You can't bring your own ammo or anything like that. You have to use the actual range ammo unless you're like a member. Sort of thing, but you can always like check their prices on their website or give them a call if you're curious. It's no pressure though. If you just want to like come eat some hot dogs and leave, that's fine. If you want to come eat some hot dogs and then like hang out and watch in the range, they allow people who just want to watch the machine gun fire to hang out. Yeah, but we're gonna be hanging out. So yeah, so it's gonna be me, it's gonna be Zach, Joe, who's the composer for H3, who I go shooting with, is also coming along, and we're just, we're gonna have a fun and just like chill time. So if you're interested, I have a Google form that I would love for you to fill out, just because I'd like to know how many people are coming ahead of time. So if it ends up being a whole bunch of people, I can like warn the range ahead of time. Even though it's a weekday, they shouldn't be super busy. It's just like a polite thing to do. So down in the description of this video is a link to the Google form if you'd like to fill it out. No unaccompanied minors, please. Like, we don't want to be responsible for you. So if you're under 18 and you want to show up, please make sure it's like with a parent or something like that, if they can stand a whole bunch of nerds in this sort of context. But otherwise, we would love you to come and hang out. So yeah, hope to see a bunch of you. Beyond that, for this update, beyond our sort of event, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that I focused on this past week related to optimization. Like I was tearing apart a bunch of things for doing this smoke redo, and a whole bunch of that dates to much earlier in the game when I didn't know certain things. So I've basically just like turned off a bunch of shader and material calculation and like renderer lookups that just weren't necessary, that I know now to do that I didn't know back then. So this is all to say that the smoke should all draw faster, it should run faster, and be more reliable. And that was the whole point of doing this. Also fixed a bunch of sound and metadata errors that are in there. And obviously I just want to continue to thank those of you who are willing to post bug reports with detailed reproduction and details of what's going on to the Discord bug report section and the Steam one. It is always tremendously helpful. So yeah, well, that just about does it for this week. It looks like I'm just about done getting through this little bite of content and fixing these things. So this will probably go mainline next week unless there's something catastrophically wrong with it. And then we're going to move on to our next point of order, which is going to be finally addressing some core issues with optics in H3 and improving that and doing the horrible process probably of having to manually redo all of them again, which is always fun, but will be worth it for what is coming. Ole's been cooking up some cool stuff beyond just the AR models that he's been doing, and I'm super excited about what it's going to bring to the game. But I'll tell you folks more about that when it is time. So anywho, I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend. I hope to see a bunch of you in Vegas on Tuesday, and the rest of you, I'll see you all next week, hopefully with some fun footage from us getting into trouble. So
Have yourselves a wonderful weekend. Peace.